It's the kind of night NBA fans live for. Your phone buzzes. Then it buzzes again. And by the third buzz, you already know something big is happening. The name flashing across every notification isn't a superstar. It isn't a household name plastered on billboards. It's a 7-foot shot blocker with a smile you can spot from half court. And somehow, tonight, he's the center of the entire basketball universe. Daniel Gafford. The Lakers. Whispers of a trade that could change everything. And just when you think that's enough drama for one night, another name crashes into the conversation. Klay Thompson. 4 championship rings. A jersey number retired in the hearts of an entire generation of Golden State fans. And now, somehow, tangled up in trade rumors that lead right back to the city where his story first began. 2 players. 2 very different careers. One electric question hanging over Los Angeles like a storm that hasn't decided whether to break yet. Are the Lakers actually about to pull off one of the sneakiest, smartest moves of the summer? Stick with me, because this story has twists, turns, and a few surprises that even the sharpest NBA insiders didn't see coming. Let's rewind for a second, because to really understand why this rumor is exploding right now, you have to understand where the Lakers have been. Picture Los Angeles a little over a year ago. The franchise just pulled off one of the most jaw-dropping trades in modern NBA history, sending Anthony Davis to Dallas in exchange for a generational talent still in his prime, Luka Dončić. It was a trade that broke the internet, split fan bases in half, and left basketball analysts arguing on live television for weeks. But once the dust settled, the Lakers found themselves with a superstar unlike any they'd had since the days of Kobe Bryant. A player who could pass like a point guard, score like a scoring champion, and control a game with nothing but his eyes and a hesitation dribble. But here's the thing about superstars like Luka. They don't win championships alone. Even the greatest need the right pieces around them. And if there's one thing the Lakers have been searching for since that blockbuster deal, it's a big man who can do the dirty work. Someone to protect the rim. Someone to finish lobs above the defense. Someone who doesn't need the ball to make an impact, but who makes every possession easier just by being on the floor. That search has quietly become the defining storyline of the Lakers' entire offseason. Now here's where the story gets interesting, because there's one player who already knows exactly what it feels like to be that piece next to Luka Dončić. Rewind to the middle of a different season, back when Luka was still wearing Dallas blue. The Mavericks needed size. They needed defense. They needed someone who could catch everything thrown near the rim and finish it with authority. So general manager Nico Harrison made a trade. Out went a veteran named Richaun Holmes. In came a young, bouncy high-energy center who Wizards fans loved but who Washington was ready to move on from. His name was Daniel Gafford. Nobody outside of a small circle of NBA diehards expected what happened next. Gafford didn't just fit into that Mavericks roster. He exploded into it. Playing alongside Luka Dončić, he transformed into one of the most efficient big men in the entire league. Defenses simply couldn't stop the two of them together. Luka would draw 2, sometimes 3 defenders with his gravity, and Gafford would slip behind everyone, catch a lob, and slam it home before the crowd even finished gasping. The chemistry was instant. It was electric. It was the kind of palaxony, the kind of connection that coaches dream about but rarely get to actually coach. That partnership helped carry the Mavericks all the way to the NBA Finals. Think about that for a moment. A player traded mid-season, thrown into a new system with almost no time to adjust, ended up playing meaningful minutes on a finals team just months later. Gafford and another young big man, Derek Lively II, became a two-headed monster protecting the paint, swatting shots, and finishing lob after lob after lob. Mavericks fans still talk about that stretch of basketball like it was a fever dream. And Luka Dončić, more than anyone, knows exactly what Gafford brings to a winning team. So when Dončić was traded to Los Angeles, something curious started happening almost immediately. Lakers fans, hungry for any piece that could recreate that old magic, started connecting dots. What if the Lakers could bring Gafford to Los Angeles too? What if this wasn't just a trade rumor, but a reunion years in the making? It's the kind of storyline that writes itself, and once fans start dreaming about it, the rumor mill never really goes quiet again. Fast forward to this summer, and that dream started picking up real momentum. As the NBA draft approached in late June, insiders around the league began reporting that the Dallas Mavericks had a logjam at the center position. Two capable big men already on the roster, plus a rookie big man added through the draft, meant someone was almost certainly going to become expendable. And the name that kept surfacing again and again was Daniel Gafford. One well-connected insider reported that the Lakers were exploring the market for a center, and that Gafford, given his history playing alongside Luka Dončić, made a whole lot of sense as a trade target. It wasn't just speculation pulled out of thin air. It was grounded in roster logic. Dallas had too many bodies at one position. Los Angeles desperately needed exactly what that position offered. On paper, it looked like one of those trades that almost feels inevitable, the kind where you look at both rosters and think, why hasn't this already happened? Then the Mavericks made their draft selection, taking a talented big man out of Michigan with one of their first-round picks. And just like that, the numbers game in Dallas got even more crowded. Some analysts pointed out that this pick may have sealed Gafford's fate in Dallas. With two other capable centers already penciled in for major minutes, Gafford suddenly looked less like a core piece of Dallas's future and more like a trade chip waiting to be cashed in. Now, here's where things get juicy, because Gafford isn't just some journeyman on an expiring deal that teams can rent for a few months. He's set to begin a 3-year contract extension worth over $54 million. That's a significant chunk of money, but for a team like the Lakers, who need an athletic rim protector without breaking the bank on a max contract, it's actually seen as a very manageable price tag. In a league where stars are commanding contracts north of $200 million, a rim-running, shot-blocking center for around $17 million a year starts to look less like a risk and more like a bargain. Of course, no trade rumor comes without its share of red flags, and Gafford's situation is no different. Over the past 2 seasons, injuries have limited him significantly. He's only appeared in 57 and 55 games over that stretch, numbers that would make any front office pause before pulling the trigger on a trade. Missing nearly a quarter of the season 2 years running is the kind of red flag that shows up in every scouting report, every trade committee meeting, every whispered conversation between general managers. But it's worth remembering that before that stretch, Gafford put together 3 consecutive seasons playing in at least 70 games. Durability concerns are real, but they're not necessarily permanent. Sometimes a player just needs the right system, the right medical staff, the right role, to get back to full health. As the summer rolled on, more voices joined the conversation. One prominent NBA insider reported that Dallas would be willing to move Gafford, but only if they received a first-round draft pick in return. According to that insider, Gafford had been available on the trade market throughout the entire offseason, and Dallas specifically wanted that first-round pick secured before the draft even took place. That's a meaningful detail, because it tells you Dallas isn't just dumping Gafford for salary relief. They see him as a legitimate asset, valuable enough to command real draft capital in return. But then, just as quickly as momentum seemed to build, a different report threw a bit of cold water on the whole situation. Another respected insider suggested that despite all the fan excitement, there hadn't actually been trade talks of real consequence between the Lakers and Mavericks involving Gafford, at least not yet, at least not according to their sources. It's a reminder of something every seasoned NBA fan eventually learns the hard way. Not every rumor becomes reality. Sometimes the loudest whispers fade into silence. Sometimes a trade that looks perfect on paper never actually gets off the ground, because contracts don't align, or asking prices are too steep, or a front office simply changes its mind at the last minute. Still, the fact that these conversations keep resurfacing, week after week, insider after insider, tells you something important. Even if nothing has been finalized, the interest is real. The Lakers clearly see value in Gafford. And Dallas, still in the middle of a roster overhaul under new leadership, clearly sees him as movable. When that many respected voices around the league keep circling back to the same name, it's rarely just noise. It usually means something is simmering beneath the surface, even if the timing hasn't lined up just yet. And here's a detail that adds even more fuel to the fire. Around the same time Gafford's name kept surfacing, so did the name of another Dallas veteran, someone who fits an entirely different need but who somehow keeps getting mentioned in the very same breath. Klay Thompson. Let's talk about how Klay Thompson, one of the greatest shooters to ever step onto a basketball court, ended up as the subject of trade rumors that keep leading straight back to Los Angeles. To understand Klay's situation, You first have to remember what he built before any of this. For over a decade, Thompson was half of one of the most feared shooting duos in NBA history. Alongside a certain generational point guard, he helped turn the Golden State Warriors into a dynasty, winning 4 championships and redefining what it meant to shoot the basketball at an elite level. Klay wasn't just a good shooter. He was a legend in the making, the kind of player whose jersey you'd see in crowds from Oakland to Manila to Melbourne. But basketball, like life, doesn't stay the same forever. Eventually, after over a decade with the only franchise he'd ever known, Thompson signed with the Dallas Mavericks as a free agent. It was a move that surprised plenty of fans, but it made sense on paper. Dallas had just made a run to the NBA Finals, and adding a proven shooter like Klay felt like the missing piece to push them even further. He was looking forward to competing for championships again, this time wearing a different jersey, but chasing the exact same dream. Except things in Dallas took a turn nobody saw coming. Not long after Klay arrived, the Mavericks shocked the entire basketball world by trading away their franchise cornerstone, Luka Dončić, sending him to the Lakers in that blockbuster deal we talked about earlier. Just like that, the team Klay signed up to compete with looked completely different than the one he'd envisioned. The championship window he thought he was stepping into suddenly felt uncertain, maybe even closed. Since that trade, Dallas has been in a very different phase of team building. New leadership stepped in, led by a highly respected front office executive with a track record of turning franchises around. The roster has been reshaped piece by piece, with an emphasis on youth, length, and building around their newest young cornerstone, a talented forward taken with a very high draft pick. In that kind of rebuild, veteran players on expiring or short-term contracts often become trade chips rather than centerpieces. And that's exactly the phase Klay Thompson now finds himself in. As this offseason unfolded, reports began surfacing that Dallas was actively exploring trade options for Thompson. Multiple league sources confirmed that conversations were happening behind the scenes, with rival executives fielding calls about Klay's availability. And then came a detail that sent Lakers fans into a frenzy. According to a well-sourced report, Thompson would actually welcome a return to Los Angeles if the opportunity presented itself. It's not hard to understand why. Klay spent part of his childhood in the Los Angeles area and, according to those same reports, still owns a home there. For a player entering the twilight of a legendary career, the idea of finishing things out somewhere familiar, somewhere close to home, carries a weight that goes beyond basketball strategy. It's personal. But before you get too far ahead of yourself imagining Klay Thompson in a Lakers jersey, it's important to slow down and look at the actual details. The same report that revealed Thompson's preference was very clear about one thing. It did not confirm that the Lakers were his preferred destination specifically, and it did not indicate that the Lakers and Mavericks had engaged in any trade discussions involving him. In other words, Klay wanting to play in Los Angeles is very different from the Lakers actually being in trade talks for him. Those two things can both be true at the same time without one leading directly to the other. So who else is in the mix? The Miami Heat. Multiple reports throughout the summer have named Miami as a persistent suitor for Thompson's services. The Heat have been searching for outside shooting to pair alongside their core, especially after making a headline-grabbing addition of their own earlier in the offseason. Klay's shot-making ability, even at this stage of his career, remains one of the most valuable skills in the league. A team like Miami, always looking for that extra bit of spacing and championship experience, makes a lot of sense as a trade partner. Here's where the story takes another twist though. According to recent reporting, Miami hasn't actually made real progress toward a trade with Dallas. Instead, some in league circles believe the Heat might simply be hoping for a buyout instead of a trade. If Dallas were to release Thompson from the remainder of his contract rather than trading him, he'd become a free agent, able to sign with any team, including Miami, on his own terms. Miami reportedly has around $8 million left in a special salary cap exception that could be used to sign Thompson if that scenario played out. But Dallas, at least based on the most recent reports, doesn't seem particularly interested in a buyout. League sources have consistently indicated that Dallas would rather trade Thompson and recoup some kind of asset in return rather than simply releasing him and getting nothing back. That makes sense from a business perspective. Thompson still holds real value around the league. Why give that away for nothing when a trade partner might be willing to send back a draft pick, a young player, or a combination of both? And here's the piece of this puzzle that ties everything together, The reason these two storylines, Gafford and Thompson, keep getting mentioned in the same breath. Dallas is dealing with a roster crunch. After matching an offer sheet for a young player earlier this offseason, the Mavericks currently have 16 players on standard contracts. NBA rosters are limited to 15. That means, mathematically, at least one player has to go before the regular season begins. It's not optional. It's a roster rule Dallas simply cannot avoid. That single fact changes everything about how you should read these trade rumors. This isn't just idle chatter or fans wishing for their favorite players to team up. Dallas has a real, practical, salary cap-driven reason to make a move, and soon. Whether that move ends up being Gafford, Thompson, or someone else entirely on the roster remains to be seen, but the clock is ticking, and teams around the league know it. That urgency tends to accelerate trade talks in ways that pure speculation never can. Let's take a step back now and look at the bigger picture, because understanding the Lakers' side of this equation matters just as much as understanding Dallas's situation. The Lakers, under head coach J.J. Redick, have been trying to build what people around the organization describe as a championship culture. That's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in sports, but in this case, it reflects a genuine shift in how the franchise operates. Redick, a former sharpshooter himself who transitioned into coaching and media before taking the Lakers job, has emphasized discipline, spacing, and modern basketball principles. But even the best culture in the world needs talent to execute it. And despite having a genuine superstar in Luka Dončić, the Lakers have been open about lacking the depth and overall talent needed to truly compete for a championship at the highest level. That's the honest, unvarnished truth behind all these trade rumors. This isn't about making flashy headlines. It's about a front office recognizing real weaknesses on the roster and trying to address them before it's too late. Adding to the complexity, the Lakers have multiple contracts coming off their books this offseason, which gives general manager Rob Pelinka a level of financial flexibility that not every team enjoys. Free agency has already been active around the league, and there are difficult decisions still looming, including situations involving Lakers veterans and longtime fan favorites. The front office has to balance short-term needs with long-term flexibility, all while trying to build the best possible roster around a superstar who is very much in win-now mode. It's also worth mentioning that the Lakers have been connected to other big men throughout this process, not just Gafford. Names like restricted free agents who play center have come up in various reports. There have also been reports connecting the Lakers to another Dallas veteran, a versatile forward who can play multiple positions. Some analysts have even suggested that this other player might actually be a better overall fit than Gafford, thanks to his positional flexibility and ability to space the floor. But Dallas has reportedly attached a fairly high asking price to that player, making a deal more complicated to construct. This is the reality of NBA trade rumors that a lot of casual fans don't always appreciate. It's rarely as simple as Team A wants player B, so it happens. There are salary matching rules, asset valuations, competing offers from other teams, personal preferences from the players themselves, and dozens of other variables all moving at once. What looks like a straightforward, logical trade on the surface can collapse over something as small as a disagreement about which second-round draft pick gets included in the package. So where does that leave us right now, in this very moment? As of the most recent reporting, nothing is finalized. No trade has been officially announced involving Daniel Gafford and the Lakers. No trade has been completed sending Klay Thompson anywhere, whether to Los Angeles, Miami, or elsewhere. What we have instead is a rich, layered, constantly shifting web of reports, sources, and educated speculation from some of the most respected insiders in the business. But that doesn't mean this story is any less worth following. In fact, it might be even more exciting precisely because of the uncertainty. Every single day between now and the start of training camp, new information could surface. A single tweet from a trusted insider can send an entire fan base into a frenzy. A quiet meeting between front office executives at a summer league event can reshape trade talks that seemed dead just days earlier. This is the nature of the NBA offseason, and it's part of why so many fans find themselves refreshing their phones late at night, hoping to catch the next big update before anyone else. Let's think through what a potential Gafford trade might actually look like, based on everything we know. The Lakers would likely need to put together a package built around draft compensation, since Dallas has shown a preference for acquiring a first-round pick in these discussions. Some trade proposals floated by analysts have included the Lakers sending out young rotation pieces or additional draft capital in exchange for Gafford services. One particularly detailed three-team proposal even involved a third franchise, with players and picks flowing in multiple directions to satisfy everyone's roster needs. While these specific proposals are speculative, built by analysts rather than confirmed by actual front offices, they illustrate the kind of creative team building that often precedes a real trade. If the Lakers were able to successfully acquire Gafford, imagine what that frontcourt could look like. Luka Dončić running the offense, probing defenses with that unmatched combination of size, vision, and scoring ability, and then finding Gafford rolling to the rim with nobody able to stop the connection because they've already built that chemistry before, on a different team, in a different city, but with the same devastating effectiveness. It's the kind of storyline that feels almost too perfect, the sort of reunion that sports movies are written about. Two teammates, separated by a blockbuster trade, brought back together by a completely different blockbuster trade. If it happens, it would be one of the more poetic subplots of this entire NBA offseason. And if Klay Thompson somehow does end up finding his way to Los Angeles, whether through a trade or a buyout that leads to free agency, imagine the spacing that creates. A healthy, engaged Klay Thompson, even at this stage of his career, still commands defensive attention every single time he steps onto the floor. Defenders can't help but stay attached to him beyond the three-point line, and that kind of gravity opens up driving lanes for a player like Luka Dončić in ways that could make the Lakers' offense even more dangerous. It's not hard to see why fans have latched onto this rumor with so much enthusiasm. Of course, we have to stay grounded in reality here too. Roster construction in the NBA is a complicated science, and every move has ripple effects. If the Lakers were to acquire both Gafford and Thompson, they'd need to make sure the money works under the salary cap, that the roster spots are available, and that the pieces around Luka Dončić fit together cohesively rather than just being a collection of recognizable names. Front offices don't just collect talent for the sake of headlines. Every single roster decision has to fit into a broader strategic vision. There's also the human element to consider, something that often gets lost in the excitement of trade rumors. Daniel Gafford has built a life in Dallas over the past couple of seasons. Klay Thompson signed with the Mavericks hoping to compete for another championship before his career winds down. Trades, even ones that make perfect basketball sense, uproot lives. Players have to pack up, move their families, adjust to new coaches, new systems, new cities, sometimes with very little notice. It's easy for fans to talk about players like they're chess pieces, but behind every trade rumor is a real person navigating a career that could shift dramatically overnight. As the NBA calendar moves closer to training camp, the pressure on Dallas to resolve their roster situation only intensifies. With 16 players on standard contracts and a strict limit of 15, something has to give, and it has to give soon. That mathematical reality means these rumors, however speculative they might sound right now, carry genuine urgency behind them. This isn't a storyline that can simply fade away and be forgotten. Dallas literally cannot enter the regular season with their current roster construction. A move is coming. The only real question is which move, involving which player, and landing with which team. For Lakers fans, that uncertainty is exactly what makes this such a thrilling storyline to follow. Every insider report, every subtle hint dropped during a podcast appearance, every cryptic social media post from a player's inner circle becomes a clue in a much larger puzzle. Is Gafford about to reunite with his old running mate? Is Klay Thompson's Los Angeles homecoming closer than anyone realizes? Or will both of these storylines fizzle out, replaced by entirely different trades that nobody saw coming, the way NBA offseasons so often surprise even the most plugged-in insiders? What we do know for certain is this. The Lakers have a genuine need at center, a need that Daniel Gafford's skill set and prior chemistry with Luka Dončić could address perfectly. We know Dallas has a logjam at that position and a roster crunch forcing their hand. We know Klay Thompson has expressed a desire to return to Los Angeles, even if that desire hasn't yet translated into confirmed trade discussions. We know Miami remains in the picture as a suitor for Thompson, whether through trade or buyout. And we know that time is running out for Dallas to figure all of this out before the regular season tips off. Every single piece of this puzzle is sitting right there, visible, logical, and connected. Sometimes in the NBA, all the pieces align perfectly and nothing happens. The deal falls through for reasons only the front offices fully understand. Other times, seemingly out of nowhere, everything clicks into place within a matter of hours, and suddenly what felt like distant speculation becomes an official press release, complete with an introductory press conference and a new jersey number. So here's where we leave things, standing right at that fascinating edge between speculation and reality. The Lakers, fresh off landing a generational talent in Luka Dončić, are searching for the right complementary pieces to build a true championship contender. Daniel Gafford, a player who already knows exactly what winning basketball with Dončić looks like, sits available on the trade market in Dallas. Klay Thompson, a legend still searching for one more shot at glory, has made it known he'd welcome a return to the city where part of his story began. And Dallas, under new leadership and reshaping their roster for the future, faces a roster crunch that demands action sooner rather than later. Will the Lakers finally land Daniel Gafford? Will Klay Thompson find his way back to Los Angeles for one final chapter in a legendary career? Or will this entire summer of speculation end with both players landing somewhere else entirely, leaving Lakers fans to wonder what could have been? Nobody knows for certain, not yet. But if there's one thing NBA history has taught us again and again, it's that when this many respected voices around the league keep circling back to the same names, week after week, something usually happens eventually. Maybe not today. Maybe not this week. But the pieces are on the board, the motivations are clear, and the clock is ticking louder every single day that passes without a resolution. Keep your eyes open, because this story is far from finished, and when the next update drops, you'll want to be one of the first to know exactly what it means for the Lakers, for Luka Dončić, and for the future of this franchise as it tries to climb back to the top of the basketball world.